stand out.
際立つ、目立つ。
He was an excellent public speaker, which made him stand out from the crowd. Stick out.
突き出る、目立つ。
While walking along the beach, I found parts of a Buddhist statue sticking out of the sand. Cling to.
に、くっつく。に、固執、執着する。
The child clung to his mother more tightly when he was spoken to by a neighbor. Stick to.
主義、決定などを堅持する。に、くっつく。
We're determined to stick to our original plan as best we can. Count on. Count upon.
に、頼る。を当てにする。
We're very lucky to have a trustworthy person like Kato, whom we can always count on. Rest on. Rest upon.
に、基づく。に、頼る。
There is no doubt that all human relationships rest on mutual respect and trust. Look out. Look out for.
気をつける。に、気をつける。
You should look out for pickpockets, especially when you are traveling alone. Watch out. Watch out for.
気をつける。に、気をつける。
Watch out, Yuka. There's a big car coming toward you. Hand over.
を引き渡す。を手渡す。
He wants to hand over the command of the factory to his son as soon as possible. Turn over.
1を引き渡す。を譲る。
According to a TV newscast, another badly abused child was turned over to an institution.
2をひっくり返す。ページなどをめくる。ひっくり返る。
Turning the finished letter over and folding it, the secretary put it into an envelope. Date back to.
に、遡る。に、始まる。
Research reveals the first evidence of tool production dates back to about 2.5 million years ago. Date from.
から始まる。に、遡る。
The first camera phones date from the very beginning of the 21st century. Put aside.
を脇に置く。を取っておく。を蓄える。
I respect him for his attitude. Putting aside his anger, he apologized. Set aside.
を蓄える。を取っておく。を脇に置く。
My mother has been setting aside a fixed amount of money every month for a rainy day. Sit up.
1. 寝ないで起きている。
The mother sat up all night waiting for her son to get home.
2. 寝た状態から上半身を起こす。
Suddenly, Hayato stopped snoring, sat up, looked around, and went back to sleep.
3. きちんと座る。
Sitting up straight with hands joined in his lap, he remained silent for a long time thinking. Stay up.
寝ないで起きている。
I stayed up all night watching the tennis matches on TV last night. Hold back.
を静止する。真相などを隠す。
The story was so moving that the children could not hold back their tears. Keep back.
真相などを隠す。を静止する。
I began to suspect that she was keeping back the truth from me. Section 6.
似た意味を持つ熟語。2.
Feel sorry for.
を気の毒に思う。に同情する。
I felt sorry for you when I saw you working in the rain. Take pity on. Have pity on.
に同情する。
Finally, the guard seemed to take pity on the girl and said, "Okay, go in." Sympathize with.
に同情する。
I deeply sympathized with Tom when I knew he'd been in a tragic situation for a long time. Take pride in.
を誇り、自慢に思う。
It is important to take pride in whatever job you choose for your career. Pride oneself on.
を誇り、自慢に思う。
Naoki's new wife prides herself on being a good cook. Surrender to.
に屈する。
He seemed to have surrendered to temptation and started drinking again. Yield to.
に屈する。に道を譲る。
Misa's parents finally yielded to her strong desire to study abroad. Be essential to.
にとって不可欠である。
In the aging society we are living in today, elevators are essential to urban living. Be indispensable to. Be indispensable for.
にとって不可欠である。
As a long-time worker, Jim was indispensable to a small company like my father's. Be equal to.
に等しい。
I used to think that diet, exercise, and sleeping well are equal to good health. Be equivalent to.
に等しい。
The amount of food waste in Japan is said to be equivalent to 30% of its domestic food production. Be apt to do.
何々しがちである。
I must be careful, as I am apt to make a slip of the tongue. Be inclined to do.
何々する傾向がある。何々したい気がする。
Perhaps it is true that married people are more inclined to make donations to charities. In a sense.
ある意味では、ある点で。
In a sense, he is right. Rivalry is essential for us to make progress and survive. In a way.
ある意味では、ある点で。
You keep advising him every step of the way, so, in a way, you're kind of planning his life. First of all.
まず第一に。
First of all, let me congratulate you on becoming members of this institution. In the first place.
まず第一に。
The best cure for environmental problems is to prevent them from happening in the first place. Back and forth.
行ったり来たり。前後に。左右に。
In his 40s, Kenji used to travel back and forth between the United States and Japan. Up and down.
行ったり来たり。上下に。
My shopping bag broke in the middle of the road. Puzzled, I looked up and down the street. At present.
現在は。目下。
At present, many victims from the last earthquake are still living in temporary dwellings. At the moment.
現在は。ちょうど、その時。
The restaurant is full at the moment, so we will have to wait for some time. In a word.
要するに、つまり。
The speaker talked a lot, but what he meant was, in a word, he was opposed to the plan. In short.
つまり、手短に言えば。
In short, Shakespeare was proposing the process we now call the scientific method. Generally speaking.
一般的に言えば。
Generally speaking, Japanese women live longer than Japanese men by about 6 years. On the whole.
全体的には。概して。
I saw a few people here and there, but on the whole, the street looked deserted that night. All in all.
全体的には。概して。
She made some small mistakes, but all in all, I think she's done a good job. In principle,
理論的に、理論的には、原則的に、原則的には、
this proved that the idea worked at least in principle. In theory,
理論上は、
in theory, it may be so, but in practice, it is not so simple. At all cost, at all costs, at any cost.
ぜひとも、
The members are determined to complete the project at all costs. By all means,
1、ぜひとも、必ず、
if you wish to become a poet, I hope you pursue that passion by all means.
2、ぜひどうぞ、
May I take this pamphlet?
By all means, as it were.
いわば、
He often acts so selfishly, he is, as it were, a grown-up baby. So to speak, so to say.
いわば、
The whole system was completely out of date, so it collapsed under its own weight, so to speak. For one's part, for one's own part.
何々としては、に関する限りは、
For his part, Takuya had never once thought of making an apology for what he'd done. On one's part,
の側での、何々としては、
to read books critically, good reasoning is indispensable on the reader's part. For the present,
当分の間、当分の間は、差し当たり、
Jack remains in this post for the present, but someone else will take over next year. For the time being,
当分の間、当分の間は、差し当たり、
our house is quite small, but it's good enough for the time being. Close at hand, near at hand.
距離、時間的に、すぐ近くに、
I'm trying to repair this on my own, so I need to keep this manual close at hand. Around the corner. Just around the corner.
距離、時間的に、すぐ近くに、
I'm just wondering if he remembers my birthday is just around the corner. For all.
何々にもかかわらず、
For all the convenience it provides, plastic is now a plague on the environment. With all.
何々にもかかわらず、
With all the evidence, the man continued to deny committing the crime. As for.
について言えば、に関する限り、
As for architecture in the city, there are definitely quite a few must-see places. As to.
に関して、に関しては、
The committee had a heated debate as to whether the construction of the park should be delayed. Not to mention.
は言うまでもなく、
Maya was so tired, she could hardly move, not to mention do all the cooking and washing. To say nothing of.
は言うまでもなく、
She speaks French, to say nothing of English. Section 7.
反対の意味を持つ熟語、
Be dependent on. Be dependent upon.
に依存している、
Japan has so little oil that we are almost entirely dependent on imports. Be independent of.
から独立している、
Jane was already financially independent of her parents before she finished university. In order.
整頓されて、順調で、適切で、
I think a brief explanation about how this historical event happened is in order here. Out of order.
故障して、順序が狂って、
This vending machine is out of order, so I have to find another one. Look down on. Look down upon.
見下す。
Animals have a culture different from that of humans in that they look down on the old. Look up to.
を尊敬する。
I look up to this movie star who is also working for world peace. Do with.
1があればありがたい。
To love my neighbors the way the Bible says, that is something I could do with learning about.
2
Be done with, have done with.
で何々を済ませたと縁を切った。
As soon as I am done with the dishes, I will do the laundry.
3を処理、処置する。
When Stephen was in school, his teachers didn't know what to do with him. Do without.
なしで済ます。何々なしで済ます。
It's too late to go shopping, so let's do without chicken tonight. In sight. Within sight.
見えて、視界に入って。
She looked around to satisfy herself that no one was in sight. Out of sight.
見えなくて、視界から消えて。
For your security, I advise you to keep your valuables out of sight. At ease. At one's ease.
くつろいで。
I feel at ease with this lady. Ill at ease.
不安で、落ち着かないで。
When he moved to Texas, he felt ill at ease in the new environment. Section 8.
いくつかの意味を持つ熟語。1、
Act on. Act upon.
1に取り組む。2、作用する。
The list of reasons for us not acting on climate change is long.
2、命令、信念などに従って行動する。
You are grown up now. You must act on what you believe in. Break in.
1、押し入る。口を挟む。
From the footprints outside, it was clear the burglar had broken in through the window.
2、を鳴らす。
It'll take a few days to break in these shoes. Break out.
1、火事、戦争などが起こる。
It was in 1918 when the so-called Spanish flu pandemic broke out worldwide.
2、汗、吹き出物などが出る。急にしだす。
I broke out in a sweat as I kept running to catch the 738 express. Break up.
1、バラバラになる。解散する。をバラバラにする。解散させる。
The ice at both poles is breaking up earlier every year due to global warming.
2、人が別れる。関係などが終わる。を終わらせる。
I've broken up with John, but between you and me, I actually feel a bit relieved. Call for.
1、を必要とする。を求める。
The situation is extremely serious and calls for immediate action.
2、人を誘い、迎えに行く。物を取りに行く。
I should have called for you at 8 as I'd promised, but I overslept. Call on. Call upon.
1、人を訪問する。
Professor Yoshida, could I call on you sometime next week at your office for some advice?
2、に要求する。
The report calls on the government to consider setting numerical targets on this. Come across.
1、を偶然見つける。2、偶然出会う。
Readers often remember where on the page they came across a particular passage. Come across.
2、考えなどが 相手に伝わる、理解される。
Her points came across very well as she spoke, so we really enjoyed her talk. Come to.
1に達する、に来る。
Your total comes to $347, but you can also pay in euros or yen here.
2
Come to do.
で何々するようになる。
A friend of mine says he's come to realize he doesn't have the talent to become a writer. Come to.
3意識を回復する、正気に戻る。
When he came to, he looked up and saw a spreading mushroom-shaped cloud. Give out.
1を配る、を発する。
The company gives out special calendars for free if you buy the item today.
2供給物、力などが尽きる、なくなる。
After 3 hours of effort to solve the problem, my patience gave out. Go by.
1時などが経つ、通り過ぎる。
As the day went by, more people came into town wondering what was happening there. Go by.
2の名で通る、知られる、によって行動、判断する。
Her real name was Yoshiko, but she usually went by the nickname Chiko-chan. Go off.
1出かける、去る、伝統などが消える。
We had to go off to our grandparents' house for our annual Christmas dinner.
2仕掛けが作動する、爆薬が爆発する、銃などが発射される。
My alarm didn't go off this morning, so I overslept and was late for school. Go on.
1状況などが続く、時間が過ぎる。
Colombia's civil war has been going on for many decades.
2通例
Be going on.
で起こる、行われる。
I knew something was going on under the surface, but couldn't tell for sure what it was.
3旅行などに出かける。
I'm going on my first trip abroad next month, and I need some advice. Go out.
1出かける。
After she had switched off the TV, Mary went out for a walk.
2灯火などが消える、気絶する、死ぬ。
The moment a severe earthquake struck our area, all the lights went out. Go over.
1に詳細に目を通す、を調べる。
My father's going to go over the whole document to make sure it is perfect.
2を復習する、を繰り返す。
Masato went over what he'd learned the night before the exam. Go with.
1と付き合う、と一緒に行く。
I know Yuto has been going with Lisa for some time now.
2に似合う。
Do you think this shirt goes with my trousers? Hold out.
1手などを差し出す。
I'm Carla, she said, and held out her hand for a handshake.
2希望などを抱かせる。持ちこたえる。耐える。
A deep respect for human rights holds out hope for better treatment of us human beings. Hold up.
1を持ち上げる。を支える。持ちこたえる。
The guard at the parking lot held up his hands high to stop our car.
2を遅らせる。
We were held up by a traffic jam on the way and couldn't make it to the meeting in time.
3に強盗に入る。
The bank was held up last night. Live on.
1 を常食にする。
In the world today, a great many people have to live on a very inadequate diet.
2、何々の収入、金額で生活する。
Few couples can afford to live on one person's earnings, especially if they have children. Live on.
3、生き続ける。
The name of this Edo era's great artist lives on today in many museums around the world. Look to.
1の方を見る。2、気をつける。
When I walked out to the road, I looked to the right and then the left before crossing it.
2に頼るを当てにする。
In former days, when in doubt, people often looked to magicians for directions. Look up.
1、辞書などで何々を調べる。
Sota always tries to look up new words in his dictionary whenever they come up.
2、人を尋ねる。
Be sure to look us up when you're in town.
3、通例
Be looking up.
で、景気などが上向く、好転する。
According to the statistics, things seem to be finally looking up. Put out.
1、火、明かりなどを消す。
It was some time before the firefighters put out the forest fire.
2、を出す。
Car manufacturers around the world put out new models at least once a year. Settle down.
1、定住する。落ち着く。
John traveled through Syria before deciding to settle down in a small village in Spain.
2、腰を据えて始める。
We were just settling down to dinner when there was a call from Eta, my friend. Stand by.
1、傍観する。待機する。
Tom just stood by without doing anything to help her pick out a gift. Stand by.
2、を指示、擁護する。約束などを守る。
My parents said that they would stand by me no matter what decision I made. Section 9.
いくつかの意味を持つ熟語。2、
Stand for.
1を意味するの略である。
WHO stands for the World Health Organization.
2を許容するを我慢する。
The new English teacher told us that she wouldn't stand for speaking Japanese in class. Take in.
1を取り入れるを理解する。
I often hear Americans take in a third of their calories at restaurants.
2を騙す。
He had a hard time believing her this time because he'd been taken in by her before.
3を見物する。
We decided to take in a few more sights while we were there. Take on.
1を引き受けるを雇う。
At the moment, his co-workers seemed to be all too busy to take on extra work.
2、様相、色、性質などを呈する、帯びる。
Since 1936, the torch has taken on a different form for every Olympic relay.